The Mystery of the Missing Necklace, Chapter 15. Tuesday night at last. Tuesday night did come at last. For once in a way, it was a cloudy night, and it almost looked as if the longed for rain was coming. It was a little cooler, and everyone was thankful. "How are you going to manage about your father and mother tonight?" asked Pip. "I mean, you want to set off about 7:30, don't you? And that's the time you have dinner with them." "They are away for a couple of nights," said Fatty. "Bit of luck. That Larry, you come to dinner with me, and we'll have it at 7 together. Then you can walk down with me to the hall to make sure no one will see me." "Right," said Larry. "I will. Wish I was going to come into the hall with you, too, and see everything. Will you come back and tell us what's happened, Fatty? Even if it's very late, I'll keep awake." "All right, but I would better not go to Pip's," said Fatty. "Mrs. Hilton is sure to hear me if I call up to Pip. Her room is just nearby." "Oh, Fatty, we can't possibly wait till the morning," cried Bets. "You'll have to," said Fatty. "I can't go round to you and tell you what's happened. Anyway, you'll be fast asleep, Bets." I shan't sleep a wink all night," said Bets. The day dragged by very slowly. At 6:30, Fatty left Pip's with Larry, and the two of them went to Fatty's house. They were to have dinner early at 7. Then their adventure would begin. All the children felt excited, but only Fatty did not show it. He appeared to be as calm as ever. The two boys made a very good meal indeed. Then Fatty put the pink stuff on his face, and after that they set out to go down to the river. They meant to take the path over the fields, then go by the waterside, and so come to the fair without meeting a lot of people. They arrived at the Waxworks Hall. "How are you going to get in?" whispered Larry, suddenly seeing that the place was shut and in darkness. "Didn't you spot me undoing the catch of one of the windows when we were here this morning?" whispered Fatty. "I'm going to get in there. I say, what about you coming in too? In case I get into difficulties over dressing, you can easily hop out of the window afterwards." "Yes, I will," said Larry, pleased at the idea of watching Fatty dress himself as Napoleon. "Where's the window?" "It's this one," said Fatty, and looked cautiously around. "Anyone about?" "Not a soul." "Here goes, then." He opened the window quietly, hauled himself up, and dropped down into the hall. Larry followed. The boys shut the window carefully, in case anyone noticed that it was open. The hall wasn't dark, because a lamp from the fair nearby shone into it, and gave a faint and rather eerie light to the still waxworks. The boys looked round them. The figures somehow seemed more alive than in the daytime, and Larry gave a little shiver. Silly fancies crept into his head. Suppose wax figures came alive at night and walked and talked? What a dreadful shock it would give him and Fatty. "They all seem to be looking at us," whispered Larry. "They make me feel quite creepy. Look at Nelson. He's watching us all the time." "Idiot," said Fatty, walking over to Napoleon. "Come on, help me to undress him, Larry." It was a funny business, undressing the rather plump figure of the wax Napoleon. It wasn't easy either, because Napoleon didn't help him in any way. In fact, it almost seemed as if he quite deliberately tried to make things difficult for the two boys. "If only he would raise his arms a bit, or give a wriggle or something," whispered Larry. "We could get his things off easily then, but he just makes himself as stiff as possible." Fatty chuckled. "I'd get a shock if he did raise his arms or wriggle," he said. "I would just as soon he didn't. There, his coat's off, thank goodness. But I have torn his high collar a bit. Now for his trousers." Soon poor Napoleon stood stiff and straight in nothing but some kind of shapeless undergarment. The boys lifted him up and carried him to a cupboard. They put him inside and shut the door. Then Fatty proceeded to undress himself very quickly. He stuffed his own clothes into the cupboard with Napoleon. Then, with Larry's help, he put on Napoleon's clothes. They fitted him quite well, and he only had to use one of Daisy's safety pins. He pulled on the coat, and the medals made a little jingling noise. "Fatty, you look marvelous in that uniform," said Larry in admiration. "You honestly do. Now the hat. Golly, it fits as if it was made for you." Fatty made Larry hold up a small mirror and looked at his face in it. It was all covered with pink and looked very like the faces of the wax figures around. Fatty pulled a strand of hair onto his forehead, just like the one the wax Napoleon had had. Then he put his hand under his coat, stood absolutely still and stiff, and stared straight in front of him. Larry couldn't find enough words of praise. Nobody could possibly guess you weren't a wax figure," he said. "You're marvelous, Fatty. Honestly, you're more of a wax figure than Napoleon was before. I wish you could see yourself. I really do. Golly, it's wonderful." Fatty was pleased. He beamed modestly at Larry, but not too broadly, in case the wax on his face cracked a bit. "It's only your eyes that are different from the other wax figures," said Larry. "They've got a proper light in them. The others haven't. Yours shine." "Well, I hope they won't shine too much," said Fatty. "Now you'd better go, Larry, old boy. It's about 8:30, isn't it? The man might be here early." "Right," said Larry, and then he suddenly stood stock still in fright. It sounded as if someone was fumbling at the door of the hall. "Go, quickly," said Fatty in a whisper, and Larry fled, threading his way carefully between the silent figures till he came to the window at the back of the hall. He opened it cautiously, climbed up, and dropped out, shutting it again at once. He dived under a bush and sat there, hardly daring to breathe, mopping his forehead with his handkerchief. He pictured the gang walking in silently, and he felt glad he was not Fatty, all alone there, hidden in the rows of waxwork figures. Golly, he had only got out just in time. Fatty was waiting in the greatest excitement for the hall door to open. Who would come in? The leader of the gang? All the men? Would he know any of them? The fumbling at the door went on. Somebody seemed to be having difficulty with the key. But at last it turned and the door opened quietly. Somebody stepped in and shut the door and locked it. Why lock it? Fatty was puzzled. Weren't the others coming in too then? The silent-footed person moved down the hall, and the light from the fair lamp outside shone down on him. Fatty got a most tremendous shock. It was Mr. Goon. "Mr. Goon," thought Fatty, and he almost fell off his step. "Oh, clear off, Mr. Goon. But is he one of the gang then? Mr. Goon here, with the thieves? What does it all mean?" Mr. Goon proceeded to do a very few peculiar things. He walked behind Fatty until he came to one of the wax figures. Fatty did not know which one, for he dared not move or turn round to see what Mr. Goon was doing. Mr. Goon then lifted up the figure and, panting noisily, carried it to a big window where a voluminous curtain hung. Then Fatty was able to see which figure Mr. Goon was carrying. It was the wax policeman. Mr. Goon carefully placed him behind the curtain and then creaked back to the place where the wax figure had stood. And in a flash, Fatty understood everything. He almost groaned in disappointment. Of course, Mr. Goon had read the secret message in that grocery list after all. He found out, as we did, that a meeting of the gang will be held here tonight, and he got the same brainwave too. He thought he would come and be one of the wax figures and listen in to everything. Golly, he has got more brains and pluck than I would have thought he had. Poor Fatty, it was a great shock and disappointment to him to know that the policeman would hear everything and be able to solve the mystery after all. He would know the gang and their plans and would be able to arrest the whole lot of them at once. But surely he wouldn't dare to tackle the whole gang single-handedly. No, that couldn't be his plan. Then what was it? Fatty stood and puzzled his brains, angry and miserable to think that Mr. Goon should have been cleverer enough to think of exactly the same idea as the finder outers. But it was much more difficult for me, thought Fatty. I had to undress the figure of Napoleon and dress myself up again. Mr. Goon only had to go and stand in the place of the wax policeman. We always did think that the wax figure was like Mr. Goon. Blow. Everything spoilt. Fatty would have given anything to turn round and see what Mr. Goon looked like standing stiffly there, some way behind him. Mr. Goon was breathing very heavily, as he always did when he was excited. Fatty wondered if he would remember to breathe quietly when the gang came in. Then Mr. Goon did a little cough and cleared his throat. Of course, he thinks there is nobody here at all, thought Fatty, so it doesn't matter what noises he makes. I want to cough myself, but I daren't, because Mr. Goon would be very suspicious at once. What a shock it would give him to hear one of the waxworks cough. I wonder if he'd get scared and go flying out of the hall at once. No, I don't think he would. Mr. Goon shuffled his feet a little and sniffed. Then he got out his handkerchief and blew his nose. Fatty immediately wanted to blow his too. It was most irritating wanting to sniff and cough and blow his nose when he dared not make a single movement. Fatty disliked Mr. Goon intensely at that moment, spoiling everything, enjoying himself sniffing and coughing, waiting for his big moment and thinking of promotion. There came the sound of voices outside. Then a key was put into the door and it opened. Oh, thought Fatty, Mr. Goon had a duplicate key. Had he? He made his plans well, locked the door after him too, so that the men shouldn't get suspicious, as they would have if the door had been unlocked. Four men came in. Fatty strained his eyes to try and see what their faces were like, but one and all wore soft hats pulled well down over their foreheads. They did not light a lamp, nor did they even use torches. The faint light from the fair lamp outside seemed to be enough for them. They got chairs and sat down. They waited for a while, saying nothing. Fatty wondered why. Then he knew. "Where's number 3?" said one of the men, impatiently. "He ought to be here. Didn't you warn him, number 5? "Yes, I sent him a message," said another man, "in a cigarette I gave to old Johnny. He'll turn up soon." They waited in silence again. One of the men pulled out a watch and looked at it. "Can't wait any longer," he said. "The job's on tonight." "Tonight?" said another man. "Where? All of us in it this time, or not?" "All of us," said the first man, "except number 3, as he is not here. It's the Castleton Pearls tonight." "Phew," said two of the men. "Big stuff." "Very big," said the first man. "Now see here. These are the plans. You, number 2, have got to drive the car. And you." Fatty and Mr. Goon watched and listened intently. Mr. Goon remembered not to breathe loudly, and as for Fatty, he was so excited that he hardly breathed at all. They heard all the details of the new robbery to be pulled off that night. But try as he would, Fatty could not see clearly the face of any of the men at all. He began to think hard. The men would soon be gone. Once they were gone, he would get to the telephone and tell the inspector all he knew, and the robbery could be stopped. Then he remembered Mr. Goon. Blow. Mr. Goon would be in charge of this, not Fatty. Poor Mr. Goon was not feeling very happy just at that moment. He wanted to sneeze. He could feel it coming quite distinctly. He swallowed violently and wriggled his nose about. No, that sneeze meant to come. Achoo!